Look at that. We're live.
Hi, okay. Welcome to the 180 podcast. I'm Tara, and no Ellie tonight, which is unfortunate, but she's camping, which is super cool. So anyway, it's just me tonight, and we have two wonderful guests. Would you like to introduce yourselves?
Sure. David Hernandez.
And
Jose Polito.
nice to see you guys.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, of course. So we've had David on before, but we haven't had Jose on before. So do you want to tell us, what is it that you do
Yes,
that brought you on tonight?
absolutely. So, again, my name is Jose, and my focus is I'm a communications and leadership coach. I focus on ultra difficult conversations, say, talking about faith, talking about politics.
Yes, and that's something that's very necessary. And from when we've talked before, you have also said that you have these difficult conversations at difficult places. Like, do you want to talk about, where you go and what you run into?
Yeah, absolutely. So it could be sharing the faith at work. I've worked at various secular companies or, university campuses, having small group discussions regarding politics and how that might prevent certain people from participating in the full life of, let's say, a particular university I attended. And the real goal here is not just to say, let's have a difficult conversation. It's let's have a life-giving version of that conversation. Let's have one where it's like, wow, I know more about David. I know more about Tara. They know more about me. We now have this mutual appreciation off of a topic that everyone says we should be fighting over. Yeah. So imagine going back home, you viewer, going back home Thanksgiving or Christmas, and that conversation you thought you could never have with that uncle, with that aunt, with that brother or sister becomes now a bridge for greater intimacy.
So you're saying we don't have to fight with our family anymore about politics?
Yes, we definitely don't have to fight anymore. And more importantly, we should discuss politics. We should discuss religion. And the great news is we can do it in a manner that generates greater appreciation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. David, what's your take on that?
My first thought is, in theory, that sounds great. But if you're going to sit down with like some of my relatives and talk about why you voted for Trump and you want him back, that's not a good way to start a Thanksgiving dinner. And but I think what happens more often than not is people start avoiding those conversations, and so you're not really enjoying the full moment with people that you care about or that they care about you, because you're walking around on eggshells, because people have become very sensitive, and so there is a loss on both, between both individuals there, a loss of intimacy, amongst people who used to cherish being intimate around the dinner table.
So you have a personal experience with this. So do you just avoid these conversations usually, or do you still approach them?
I don't initiate them, but I don't shy away from them, and I don't when I speak, I don't try and I'm not speaking to win to win the point. It's easier to find some place where we do agree upon, or an issue that we agree upon, and then build from there. Because I don't care how someone is registered, if they're, a leftist Democrat. There are things that we do agree upon, and so if you can start there, then some of the more difficult conversations are a little bit easier, because you're seeing each other as real people, not as some poster child for some political ideology.
Yeah.
So what tactics, Jose, could you give David to help, when this happens in his experience, you could say?
Yeah. And I say this humbly because it's not like David is shy to bridge a political divide. And he's done a lot of work just even by living out a career of character that really contributes to that. In some ways, a lot of it is the opening mindset. Let's say we're driving towards that dinner with family.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
is that conversation we're having in our own heads? That's essential because what we say in the privacy of our minds and hearts is what our emotions will want to scream when we're at the dinner table. And by scream, I don't always mean that literally. I mean like it's what we will desperately try to express.
So, what do you do if you're like, let's say you're at the dinner table and it's Thanksgiving and everything seems cool and maybe you're expecting the political conversation, but your family members aren't. And then you guys start talking about it and then somebody gets kind of a heated temper with you. What's your response to that?
Yeah, my first go-to thing is I ask myself, what's the quality of my listening? So especially if it's a family member, someone I've known for many years, I should reasonably be able to faithfully write down their opinion. And if I can't, then here's a great opportunity for me to see new things to appreciate about in my family member. That's an essential thing, that desire to listen and then the execution of listening. So typically what I like to hear for is concrete things like verbs, people, for example, perhaps particular policies, desired impact, whether tangible, such as more people getting a particular benefit, or intangible, like, say, greater liberty or greater safety. And then the other thing I look for is, can I accurately describe their emotion regarding this topic?
Like the intensity of how strongly they feel, like how passionate they are.
Right, or are they terrified?
Oh.
Are they joyful?
Okay, so like let's
Yeah.
take the Trump thing for an example. So you have said that Trump was an issue of, oh, I voted for Trump. Some of my family members have an issue with that. Like, I have a challenge for you, just to play devil's advocate. Why do you think that some of your family members have an issue with that?
They have contempt prior to investigation, and it's easier to have that contempt than it is to investigate, because if you investigate, you might find that you were wrong, and that is something that I think a lot of people have difficulty in admitting, that they could be wrong. And,
It is painful.
You know, what I what I tell people is, look, you know what, I have opinions. You know, I have opinions, and sometimes people say, well, opinions are like some other part of your anatomy, and everyone has one, and they stink. And so I say, no, I have opinions based on experience, subject to change without prior notice, based on more information. So you don't have to beat me over the head with your information. Just explain it to me. Because, you know, there are things that I know. There are things that I know that I don't know. But usually it's when it's the things that I don't know that cause that pushback or cause that resistance to a conversation. So as long as I'm open, and if it's people that I care about, why wouldn't I be open to listening to them and having them share their experiences? Because quite often than not, they may have a valid opinion based on their experiences. And, you know, a lot of times I get approached by people, especially in politics, saying, stay away from that person. That person is da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And it's like, well, I've known that person for 10 years and I've never experienced that. But I also add, thank you for the information. I'll file it away just in case.
Yeah.
And so it's based on different people's experiences. And like I said, a lot of people, they don't want to be proven wrong, so they're not going to investigate the facts.
You know, something funny about like Trump say is that some people's most hated thing about them, like the thing that they hate most about him, is the same exact thing that other people most love about him. You know, like how he's like just kind of like he'll name call sometimes. Some people love that about him because they think it's so brave and bold, and other people think that it's the patriarchy at its worst, you know. So, yeah, that's So with what he just said, what's your response to that?
Yeah, I always want to go deeper. I always want to go deeper.
Like life and death, kind of deep.
Well, sort of like so. I love this dichotomy you put. Let's say where some people like that Trump name calls, and some people dislike that. Some people view it as bold, brash, in your face, tell it like it is.
Yeah.
And other people view it as here's the paragon of the patriarchy. Bad guy, bad man, toxic, right?
Yeah.
That is the initial conversation. What I want to know is more deeply is why does somebody like that? Why does somebody dislike that?
Yeah.
70 to 93% of all communication is nonverbal.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Body language.
Body
Yeah.
language. Let me translate that for you. 70 to 93% of our communication is emotion.
Oh, like how are you feeling? Like,
Yeah, you're just pretend your whole body is a big mouth and your whole body is a big ear.
that's a disturbing image.
Right, or
Just
or
kidding.
let's say you communicate with your whole self
Yeah.
in and out.
Yes.
And the core of that means that if we're discussing Trump,
Yeah.
particularly such a divisive figure in our country, if we cannot name the emotion the other person is feeling, we cannot say that we heard.
Okay.
Now, this is essential because you cannot hear until you're heard.
Yeah.
We cannot hear until we're heard. And I can demonstrate, let's say, right now on a particular topic, if you like, certain communication skills I'd use.
Yeah.
But the summary, at least at this moment, is if let's say I tell someone I voted for politician ABC, and their initial reaction is, Jose, that was a terrible decision, you're wrong. Inside, I am ecstatic that they said that.
Yeah.
And the reason is we're about to have a really meaningful conversation. For someone to say to my face that I'm really wrong means that they have serious conviction about something. And if they're willing to convey what they have serious conviction about, wow. With just the right skill set, we can polish that coal into a diamond.
And not, and then I'm sure you're very careful about not shaming them, because the shame can overtake, like turn the conviction into something that's kind of like, you kind of go into fight or flight mode. You know what I mean? So how do you do that without doing that to people,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, and we can demonstrate. Let's pick something easy. Favorite food.
Okay.
Do I have a volunteer, Tara?
okay, wait,
David?
let me think about that.
Ding dong,
Sushi.
ding dong.
Sushi.
Sushi.
Yes.
Okay.
Sushi.
Yes.
You really like sushi?
Yes.
Okay. What makes you enjoy it?
The wasabi.
The wasabi?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, is it because it's spicy? It clears your nose? Why?
I like it when the food fights back.
Oh, what? You bite it and then it's like, no way. Okay, there we go. And then I can see in your face, you're like you have this childlike excitement as you're just even remembering eating sushi. So what was the last time you had sushi?
Oh, it's been too long. It's so expensive.
Oh my
I
God.
don't know,
those-
maybe like a few weeks ago.
A few weeks ago?
Yeah.
And how did you feel when you had sushi back then?
I was happy. I was just, if you just like mix the wasabi and the sushi and the everything like perfectly, it kind of tastes like marshmallows.
Yeah?
Believe it or not, like spicy marshmallows.
Spicy marshmallows?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, this is really good. Okay. Like I literally worked at a Japanese company for 5 years, and I've never heard of someone describing sushi as marshmallow. So it's like,
It's
wow.
nice. Yes.
I feel like I'm Jasmine on the magic carpet ride. There's a whole new world. Okay. And then in particular, what is it about marshmallows and sushi that comes to mind as good?
I guess it's less about the taste and more about just how it feels in my mouth. It feels like this crazy tornado explosion
Yeah.
of spiciness. And then, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So when you have this wonderful blend
Yes.
of rice, the fish, the wasabi, you feel really happy
Yeah.
because it has this tornado blend of food fighting back.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And see, like, we started off with sushi,
Yeah.
ostensibly. But now I know that it makes you really joyful. Now I know so much about the type of food that you like.
Yeah.
And now we could go into another part of the conversation, which is, well, why do you like it when your food fights back?
That's a good question.
Yeah, let's chew on that. But
So-
Ba-dum-bum.
No, you're right. I mean, some people hate spicy stuff. Like they hate it, you know. Do you not like spicy stuff?
Nope.
You don't like spicy stuff?
Nope.
So we have a disagreement. Jose, what do we do?
listen first. Listen first.
Well-
And that's fine. And,
All right, why don't you like spicy food?
Because it's spicy. And it takes away the taste of the food.
so, wait. Let's sit on that for a second. Let's sit on that. It's like, okay, we have someone here saying that it's part of the enjoyment. And here we have David saying that the spiciness takes away from the taste of the food.
All right. I love it when I would go to dinner with my so-called progressive friends. And it's a Mexican restaurant. And they'd ask, David, would you check the salsa to see if it's spicy?
Yeah.
I go, did you just racially profile me? And you can have a lot of fun at dinner too.
Yeah.
And but I don't know. It's that afterburn. It's still burning in your mouth. You can't taste the enchilada because you've got the jalapeno sauce all over it. Or
I love that.
You start your hair starts itching, and you're all of a sudden you're perspiring. Why
doesn't
would
happen to
you
me
put
anymore.
yourself through that?
Wait, there sounds like there's this dangerous combination of like, one, the food is attacking you, and two, you're being racially profiled.
That's right. And the food is attacking you.
It's like the air is spicy, your mouth is spicy. Like, what is going on? So, anywho, we're talking about food in this very lighthearted way.
Yeah.
And I want to very quickly highlight that the listening and expression skills we've been using, David was able to bring up a topic that was relatively heavy, as in judging a book by its cover.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
And it wasn't intentional either.
Yeah, and it was so easily received. And that's what I want to say, where it's, if you're at Thanksgiving dinner, you can have a really deep conversation about the mashed potatoes. Like, and as you're having that really deep conversation about the mashed potatoes or the turkey, you might get like asides about American politics.
Okay, like give an example.
So
White privilege
Yeah.
as opposed to yams.
we went no. What I mean is, again, we were just talking about sushi. We were
White
talking about
dark
spicy,
chicken.
and all of a sudden racial profiling came up.
That's true. It did just now.
And
so I guess I could.
And I didn't encourage him to. Did you encourage?
No.
Like,
No. that
viewers,
was
did you
organic.
see anybody saying like Jerry Springer?
Yeah.
Go Belen, like nothing. So that's the key. Where
Yeah.
it's, do I view my role as a family member as that of listening with love, listening with joy.
Yeah.
And then as you listen, then that really sets a great foundation at the dinner table to be able to have amazing conversation. Now, if let's say things explode, literally at my church, somebody came and in the middle of the religious celebration, literally started to yell at the top of their lungs. So then I use certain specific listening skills to calm that person down. Can you guess how long it took me to walk that person out of the church?
2
Without touching
minutes?
them? Less.
1 minute?
Yeah. Took me 60 seconds to initiate interaction with that person, calm them down just by listening.
What was the first thing you said?
The first thing I said was I repeated what they said.
Oh, I see.
They were basically, they were terrified.
Yeah.
So it's like, I wanted that person to know that at least one person heard them.
Yeah.
And that foundation of, I hear you, and
I'm listening.
I'm listening, and in the listening, it's like I wanna help us.
Yeah.
I wanna help us. Then about 50 seconds in, they did an exhale. And then we walked out together, shook their hand. I beat the police by 7 minutes.
Oh wow.
This
Do
is
the
how.
police do that? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, though what I mean is that when the police showed up, the person had left 7 minutes beforehand. And what I mean to say here is, in 2023, we live in a country where people are starving to be heard and are terrified to listen. We are starving to be heard and we are terrified to listen. Here's why. Oftentimes, even just listening to someone else can get us blacklisted among certain circles. So when David said that essentially that he voted for Trump, and someone says, "How could you ever vote for him?" My first knee-jerk assumption is this person is making their position known so that they don't get unfriended.
Canceled. They don't want to get canceled.
So that they don't get unfriended. So
Cancel
that's my first reaction. Of course, I don't assume it to be true. Like I don't assume it to be written in stone.
Yeah.
I still want to ask them and hear them because they have their own experiences
Yeah.
and their own reasons. It's just a starting hypothesis. But yes, we're terrified to hear others. Now, the flip side is we're starving to be heard. Why are we starving to be heard? Well, if we express ourselves in a way that perhaps the group does not like, then we might find ourselves all of a sudden out of the group.
Yeah.
So that's what I teach others. It's if you want to open up ears, you need to thaw the heart. And if you want to thaw their heart, you need to open up your ears first.
Yeah.
That's what we need. And this can be taught. Anybody can learn these skills. I was coaching this one person who really wanted to connect in a spiritual level with their daughter. And they had been fighting for years. After our first coaching session, they started to worship together. And the daughter initiated hugging.
Yeah.
That was 5 years of no hugs.
Yeah.
That and again, I didn't like go into the trauma or anything. It was just like, hey, try this skill, try that one, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
There's no shame in saying, high schools and universities don't really teach listening and expression.
No, they don't.
They don't. And we used to osmosis it in a sense from our society.
Yeah.
But now our society
It's broken.
it's broken.
Divorced.
It literally is. So that's what we need.
And
It's
we're the child that like.
yeah. And here's what's wild. Okay, I dare everyone in this room and everybody who's watching, post if you disagree. Better than any other Christmas present, what you probably want is to be heard by your parents or by your children.
Yeah.
I talk with some people where they can honestly say that they're 35. They can honestly say, I can't remember the last time my mom or dad heard me.
It doesn't mean their mom or dad doesn't love them.
But it's just that being heard is the foundation to feeling safe, to feeling affirmed, to being eventually supported. That it's the sine qua non.
Yeah.
And then the inverse is too. I coach people that are in their 60s, for example, and they will say, what I want for Christmas, in so many words, is to really know who my son or daughter is and for them to really know whom I am.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's free 99. Like, you do not have to go to a company for that. You can just go to your family for that. And if you need a little bit of help, like, I'm here for you. And there's other people I'm sure who can help you.
Now, have you ever heard the term intimacy anorexic?
Oh, do tell.
Okay.
And explain that smile. Like, you felt really smart when you said that.
Yes. No, I'm an awkward laugher. I smile all the time. No, anyway, I have students who come up to me and are like, "You smile too much," and I'm like, "Think of me as a golden retriever." That's what I said, and they're like, "Okay." Anyway, no, but so intimacy anorexic. I don't remember where I heard that term, but I feel like it was somewhat valid. But anyway, it's just someone who, let's say you're starting to have a conversation with, like, let's say your cousin, that's actually very understanding and it's mutually like responsive and like you said. But what about those feelings of like, ooh, like it's getting too mushy. It's getting too, like, you know, you kind of like want to scooch away from it. Like, we're agreeing too much. Like, I almost prefer the conflict because it's spicier. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what do you say to that?
It's almost like comfort. Like,
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable in my family, and comfort in this case might be us awkwardly looking at our phones at given times
Yeah.
to separate. And here's what I would say. Sometimes it's actually really relieving to say, gee, cuz, primo, I'm hilariously feeling a little uncomfortable because, this is new.
Yeah.
Is this new for you?
Yeah.
And then putting things out on the table
Yeah.
is important because, again, 70 to 93% of your communication is nonverbal. It's emotions.
Yeah.
It's going to get communicated. Is it going to be communicated with your words congruent with how you feel? Or is it going to get communicated by, like,
Yeah.
things that oftentimes get lost in translation? So just come out with it. And the second thing is there are certain introspection techniques you can use to really get to the core of why you might feel uncomfortable getting closer with someone who's your family member.
Yeah.
And it's like, gee, why am I anxious? That is a far better use of, let's say, you pulling the parachute cord and going to the bathroom
Yeah.
than it is to go to the bathroom to, like, get 30 seconds of dopamine from TikTok.
Yeah.
No offense, if you feel personally targeted, I'm a really good listener, and you can always email me, and I'll listen to you for at least a good 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's true. The thing with the phones is very true. My mom always used to say she was so grateful that there weren't iPhones when I was a kid, because she was like, I'm so glad because, I would just be sitting there at home, like I'm talking as her right now. I would just be sitting there at home, and you would just be playing, and there was no distraction, except the TV. But it was like the TV wasn't always on, so. Now you have all these kids whose parents do have phones, and, I feel partly guilty of this. I always feel convicted of just even my daughter's trying to get my attention, and it's like, oh no, I gotta check my text, I gotta check my email, and, but those distractions, it is comforting, I will say that, and why else do we get on, like, social media, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for whatever reason, sometimes we may just be walking out of nowhere and feel anxiety, and then we go to our phone.
Yeah, that's not good.
And
Just to check.
it's just
Yeah,
to check.
just to check
And-
it.
and
It's just...
what I would say, and this I learned in grad school, it's instead of checking your phone, literally take out your hand and write the emotion you're feeling on your hand with, let's say, your finger.
Yeah.
And that has been literally proven to significantly improve your emotional state.
Whoa. Just because you're listening to yourself.
Literally.
Yeah.
When I coach people, I tell them, so when was the last time you listened to you?
Yeah.
Like, we need to make sure that you know what your motivations are, how you're feeling, etc. And then that's the other side of the thing. I can't say I heard someone if I didn't identify their emotion, and if I didn't identify the values that are driving that particular position they have.
Yeah.
Too often times, shorthand for values are we're the good guys, they're the bad guys type of deal. And that's very simplistic. What I'd like to say is more like, we were just discussing, David and I, about, people who care for animals in the LA area.
Yeah.
It's like, gee, what are their values? Perhaps they particularly value kindness,
Yeah.
or congruency, or let's say integrity of life. I may have different take on how those are the specific actions that execute those values. However, just knowing what those values are, really, that's the other side of the humanization of the conversation. It's knowing how they feel, knowing what their value. If you have both, you have good listening, and you could have a Thanksgiving without a food fight.
Yeah. That's true. So what do you think about this, David, after hearing?
Well, no, and that's, I mean, our Hispanic Republican Club, one of the reasons that we're an independent Republican club is because we are open to individuals regardless of party, regardless of their stance on one particular issue. There may be issues that we agree upon 100%. And whether it's, an animal rights issue, whether it's gun control, whatever the issue is, people that with different views, I have found that even some of my most progressive friends, I know that they're sincere in their views. So the fact that I may disagree with them on a particular subject doesn't make us enemies. Whereas I see a lot of people where we have different points of view, and I know that they're using that to push some other agenda. And so having
Yeah.
no, I was going to say, so having people that other people would say, how could you be friends with that politician?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
because
a good example.
hey, he believes that this is the best for society. He's not making it up just so he can get more power and more control and stuff like that. So at least I have respect for him. I don't have to agree with everything that he says, and quite frankly, the it's been a mutual friendship. He's like, oh, that's David the Republican. One
Yeah.
of these days, he'll get it together and come and join us on the Democrat side. And I look at him and I said, well, I know you believe in what you believe in, and and I respect you for that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I have to agree with you. And we're able to get along that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Okay.
that respect comment you made, sometimes I like to clear up what respect could mean 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And what respect could mean 95% of the time is just safety. Like
Huh.
when we say I respect you,
Mm-hmm.
95% of the time it's like, hey, we don't have to attack each other over this position
Yeah.
or over this deeply held belief. Another shorthand for respect 95% of the time is understanding. I understand your position. Does not mean I affirm it. Does not mean I negate it. I'm just saying I understand the 3 bullet points.
Yeah,
that
I
you
understand
stand
it, and I know that you believe it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That you're not. It isn't a facade that you're using like so many other people.
Yeah.
And that's what's essential in society, where so for example, you look up John Gottman, and he would say a relationship stands or falls on whether 3 emotions are felt: respect, affirmation, and love. I like to translate those to mean, safety, success, and support. The other person can feel safe without me affirming them or giving them tangible support.
Yeah.
And that is a lost art in our society, where it's just like, oh,
People can't do that themselves or something. Or?
well, it's not that they can't do that themselves. It's just if, us 3 were in this room, depending on how we communicate, we may feel like, oh, I got to run out of the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we have a measurable effect to the degree to which we experience safety in this room right now.
Yeah.
Tara, David, and Jose.
Okay.
So it's all right. Can we be in this room? That's safety. Affirmation. Are there things that we can do here that we can classify as successful?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, wow, David, I'm so glad you brought up that vignette. See, that was me saying, hey, that was a good thing he did.
Yeah.
Or Tara, I'm so glad you were so vivid in your description of what eating sushi is like for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, and there I'm saying, I love the detail and imagery you bring to life in this conversation.
Yeah.
And then the support aspect is like, all right, all three of us, let's go get sushi.
Yeah.
So now Tara feels supported, and then and David, by the way, I'll make sure to tell the sushi chef in Japanese,
No
no
wasabi.
wasabi for you. And now
Yeah.
David feels supported,
Yeah.
and then I feel super duper cool because I just told everyone I speak Japanese. So
I
So
have
do you see what I mean? Like, it
yeah,
doesn't-
Yeah, I mean, and I
Yeah.
have a question, because one thing that when you were talking, one word that stuck out to me was the word agenda, and I think that's something that I am like very new to the political world and everything. But every time I go anywhere, I always hear the word agenda, and it's a kind of a word that I wasn't exposed to very much before, like. And so I'm interested to hear your take on what do you think, because when we hear the word agenda, there's kind of a negative connotation to that is like, this person is pushing this issue for unknown purposes that are like inhumane almost. Like, that's kind of what that word makes me think of, is someone is pushing this nonsensical thing for unknown purposes that relate to nobody. Like, they kind of dehumanize. But like, and I'll give you an example. Like, so I've never met this person in real life. I've only seen their presence on media and everything. And but I look at her and I think literally the what comes flashing in my head is the word agenda, and that's AOC. Because everything that she does, every media presence that she when she says that she represents the Latina women, I roll my eyes. I'm like, you're 30 and you don't even have a kid. Like, do you really represent the Latina?
You were a bartender. Nothing against
and you
bartenders.
drive a Tesla, and it's just like all these unrelatable things to like, and
it sounds like that when it comes to the topic of agenda and politicians who have agenda, it's like it gives you a lot of pause. Like, what are you standing for, or what else bothers you about agendas?
yeah.
Yeah.
So what else bothers me about agendas?
Yeah,
Are you
absolutely.
asking? Okay, so I guess the just to go back into AOC, like, one of her big things is climate change, right? And she supports abortion mainly. I think I mean this could just be like not correct, or like the game of telephone, but I'm pretty sure it's because of overpopulation more than it even is about women's rights, because she's like, I know that her big thing is climate change. And then, making, she likes to push things that are like making Teslas and stuff, like like those should be what everyone's driving. And then, someone like me is like, well, it's hardly affordable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so
You have
want
to
the
drive
average.
a Chevy Volt.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just like, there's all these rules, and they seem like agendas. Like, the thing
Yeah.
about, what's another one? I mean, there's a ton.
Well, here-
like small
here-
business, she doesn't like it because of
Well,
promoting.
here's an example that is very local, and it's very real. Los Angeles has something about maybe 60,000 homeless people,
60,000.
with at least 5 people a day are dying in the streets
Oh my gosh.
from exposure, from drug overdose, from just. So there's a big push for housing.
Yeah.
And so the head of LA Family Housing, not the current one, but the one before, they were building all of these projects to help save these people from dying on the streets. They had 2 bond measures, a bond measure and a tax, at $3 billion. The construction cost was up to $800,000 per single unit for one person.
What? Wow.
And so when the head of the LA Family Housing was questioned about how could you spend so much money to house one person, she said, well, we are building the most environmentally friendly, green housing that will be a flagship for the country. Her agenda was the environment, not the homeless. And so they questioned the cost of labor.
Yeah.
She also brought up that she was a champion for labor equity, so that they were paying the most for labor. So between the environment and between labor equity, the people that she was brought in to help and protect were a victim of her agenda, because her real agenda was the environment and labor. She should have never been in that position. So that's why sometimes when people have, and another word for an agenda is ulterior motive.
Yeah.
They use
That's what
they use a program or an idea to further their ulterior motive, and as a result, especially in this case, not only are the taxpayers being penalized for it, but people are continuing to die on the street, and the homeless population in Los Angeles it continues to increase, not decrease.
So I want to try Jose's technique for this. So now we know, I kind of got both sides there. So one of the sides was that, there's a homelessness problem that's affecting the well-being of everybody who lives in Los Angeles. And then you have this woman who seems to be helping it, but it's like a mismatched puzzle piece. And then you find out that has ulterior motives of pushing stuff for climate change, so that's kind of right. Okay. So I will say that this is something, because I'll say one of my main issues of me being involved in any of this is trying to spread the resources to women in distress, women in who are think that abortion is their only option. Mm-hmm. And I've always said, you're being fear-mongered, like you said, it's fear, So back to this thing, I will tell you that I have an uncle who I really want to be a guest, but he doesn't want to right now. But I'm hoping I can convince him. But one of his biggest things, just in general, he's a geologist, I think. And he always talks about climate change, and he literally thinks that like everything is gonna explode within the next 30 years. Like we're all just gonna die. Mm-hmm. Like that's he says it like it's a fact.
We're just one solar flare away from extinction.
Yes. Yeah. He says that, and
he's really passionate about it.
He's very passionate about it. He takes it super seriously. Like he's very sensitive.
Well, but that's fine. And also and her views on the environment and wage equity, those are fine too. But not at the expense. If you want to go into that in that area or the area that your uncle is in, that's great. There's somebody that you can respect their beliefs. You can respect what they're doing, but he's not letting people die on the streets in order so he can have the greenest apartment building in Los Angeles.
Yeah,
and so there's a balance there.
And I want to highlight that. Here's what I would summarize more closely is what is my communication technique in this case. It would be figuring. So who's this lady's name? The LA,
she used to be head of LA Family Housing.
LA Family Housing. Okay, let's just call her the commissioner. Is that the title?
Yeah.
Okay, so and if the commissioner we're seeing right here, I'd be really curious to hear how she feels about it and what her values are. Based on what we know, I could say something like, "Oh, Commissioner, the reason you put this budget for LA housing is because you feel a great sense of responsibility for future generations. Is that right?" And she'd say, "Yeah, because I want to help the homeless and ensure that, future generations of Angelinos don't have to deal with the repercussions of climate change."
And then David and the commissioner would start fighting.
And I would say, and I would say that fictitious sentence I just made about the commissioner.
Yes.
That is just the intro statement of me really getting to listen to her.
Yeah.
I want to hear inside and out everything about it. Is her value being a responsible custodian for future generations? Stuff like that. Or let's say Tara just now. You're saying you're really passionate about ensuring that young women who find themselves with child, that you feel a great sense of urgency and passion.
And responsibility, too.
And responsibility, great sense of responsibility for them to be treated justly.
Yeah.
To not be fear mongered into a certain
Making a
decision
big mistake.
to a big mistake. And here I've identified your value of justice, feelings of responsibility. And that is a great start for having that deeper conversation of just what exactly pro life means to you. Or
Yeah.
here we have David saying agenda could mean ulterior motive. The commissioner mismanaged all this money, and David feels a great sense of injustice because now you have people literally dying in the street. Is
Yeah.
that more? Is that 85%?
Well, yeah,
what you
but
said?
you know, and I would say, from her perspective, she would say it's not mismanaged.
Exactly.
It's going exactly
Now
where
we're
it
just
should go,
doing this
and
again.
it's kind of like with the VA. 2014, they were building a new VA hospital. I forget what state it was, and the reason it was taking so long is because they were making it into a green monument to to construction, and you had I don't know how many veterans a day were committing suicide.
So now you're pointing out kind of trial and error.
Well,
Like
yeah,
this person should look at
well,
past
just be honest
and
about
the
your agenda,
consequences, yeah.
because what has happened, the homeless problem in Los Angeles has gotten so bad
Yeah.
that they finally realized maybe we ought to have some triage type housing, these small little these small little tiny homes that are now popping up
I've
all
seen
over
those.
the city. The city didn't want anything to do with that because they wanted to spend their money on these long term green environmental big construction projects. But it has gotten so bad that now you have Hope of the Valley, which was the main group that the city wouldn't talk to before. It has gotten so bad that now they're springing up all over the city.
Yeah.
They're not meant to be, the beginning and end for the homeless, but it's a triage situation.
Yeah.
And so by her ignoring that and only focusing on the long term, a lot of people suffered.
Yeah. A lot of people. Yeah.
A lot of people suffered.
You know.
And before we move on, this is a great topic to dig deeper into. It's like, in a sense, there's this opportunity cost of we can make a building, greener
Yeah.
than a green crayon,
Yeah.
and then on the other hand, then you will have a lot of people who are unhelped on the street and they're literally dying.
Yeah.
So it's like, in a word, how does that make you feel?
Yeah, well, betrayed.
Betrayed.
Oh.
It makes you feel betrayed. And see, listener, on the other side of this screen, see how essential it is to ask someone how they feel. Because I'm sure if we had polled the comments, they might
Yeah.
have said David feels there's injustice. David feels angry, but it's like betrayal.
Yeah, because I've been
Yeah.
working with the homeless for many years. On my own. I mean,
Yeah.
Like you see them.
Well, I see them. There was a young man. He was gay, homeless. He was diagnosed with AIDS, and he came to me for help.
Mm-hmm.
He was living on the street. So I helped him get a place to live, took him to his doctor's appointments, and I didn't know anything about AIDS. I didn't know, I didn't have really any gay friends. And basically I said, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
And he said, look, I'm a street person. I've lived in abandoned cars and dumpsters. People look at me with disgust or pity, and I'm going to die from AIDS. When
Wow.
I die, I would like to be remembered with respect and dignity.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, we can do that.
Yeah.
And so I laugh sometimes now when people, oh, David, you're homophobic, you're anti-gay, you're all. I don't have to go into my history of what I've done with, especially this individual. And at his memorial, we had 200 people there that looked at him with respect and dignity, because on a daily basis, he was going through all of his life's medical challenges
Yeah.
with people around him that are complaining about, flat tires and their all these different living problems, and they're watching him go through this with dignity.
Yeah. David, I really want to ask you something. So you literally helped homeless.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to understand more deeply your sense of betrayal. Is it You felt betrayed by the commissioner because you're here trying to do good, and a government representative is undermining your efforts, or how would you
Well,
explain
I
that a
think
little bit more?
it's not that individual is just representative of a system that says one thing, and they are not fulfilling that obligation.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so to see, I pull off a freeway off ramp and I know half of these people by their first name,
Yeah.
and I can give them water, I can give them food, but I'm not in the position. And I see all these politicians talking about, oh, they're going to get in there and they're going to do this and they're going to address that, and it only gets worse.
So let me know if I got this right. So seeing these politicians with ulterior agendas leads you to feel betrayed because you are literally trying to help the needy and they're undercutting the purpose of their office.
Well, they're definitely undercutting the purpose of their office. So it's not even a betrayal just to me; it's a betrayal to society.
A betrayal to society. Okay, now let's take a pause here. Tara, we started this conversation on a commissioner building buildings that were green and building buildings that were labor friendly, stuff like that.
And there was an agenda.
And how that, but now we're on a different I call a better conversation. And then we're learning specifically about how David is at the forefront.
Yeah, and he's
of-
over here inspiring me to go out and start giving water. I didn't even.
Exactly. And he's talking about one of his friends who he was helping, and basically what he wanted was to be remembered with respect and dignity, and 200 people showed up to this funeral.
And sometimes that
Yeah,
is,
I'm curious. Like, how did you give that guy dignity? Like,
well,
what
when
did
he
you do?
lost control of his bowels, I said, put on adult diapers.
Like the
Wait,
thing-
wait, wait! But what were you doing?
When
were
he
you doing
lost control,
inside?
when he
Like,
lost
did
control,
you-
when he would crap his pants.
Yeah. Oh, TMI.
Okay,
Yeah,
I said,
poor
put on
guy.
adult diapers. Get over yourself.
But what?
And he did.
So you said that you made him like dignified. How did you make him dignified? I mean, other than the diapers.
Because he showed up. He didn't kill himself. We went to the doctor's appointments. When he'd have a mess, we'd clean it up.
Would you take him to the doctor's appointment?
Yeah, and
Did you
I would
get-
take
did
him
you
to
get, like-
APLA. I would take him to the different doctor's appointments. And see, and that was another reason. One of the reasons I got involved in politics is I used to take him to a community clinic in North Hollywood, over in Tahunga and Magnolia, and and they were treating a lot of AIDS patients there. Well, the county decided we don't have the funding for that, so they closed the clinic. The same week that they gave Disney $3.5 million for the concert hall downtown. Talk
Wow.
about another betrayal.
That's a huge
So
betrayal.
the city is filled with instances where they talk about having compassion and care for people.
Especially
But they
Disney.
do things like closing a local community clinic where they're giving millions to Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
And so it's like, that's what keeps me involved in politics, because it's not whether you're going to win or lose, but believe me, you can definitely make a difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And within this, I love this conversation because for next Thanksgiving or Labor Day or whatever, when someone says something that maybe gets you triggered, for lack of a better word, it's like, because somebody could have been listening, David, and as soon as he talked about the commissioner's policies, they might have gotten upset, let's say. If you can take a breath and try to understand from them how this is personal, let's say in this case to David, you're going to see a whole better world of conversation. I want to talk about David's experiences, himself ministering to homeless. I want to hear about more of his friend whom he gave dignity and respect to. I want to hear more about the betrayals he's seen just in his career and politics. Like, this is more of a conversation about David, my friend, as opposed to politics that divide us.
Yeah.
And then when we start at that personal level of value and emotion, gosh,
I mean, it's
That's
hard
a
to
good-
argue. How do you argue with that?
it's one hard to, because I can't say you shouldn't feel betrayed. That's a
That's
losing
ridiculous,
argument.
yeah.
And I also shouldn't
Just
say,
like-
David, your value for dignity and respect for people is stupid. Like that. Like
No,
this is a terrible conversation.
Well, no, that's because absolute truths. And also, so it looks like we are out of time.
Oh.
But
Oh, could I give the website?
Oh yes,
for-
yes. No, yeah.
Okay.
Just
Hi,
you can
everybody.
do that now, and I'll just say a few. You say your final things. Just go ahead.
So my website is startattheservice.com. I do workshops or one-on-one coaching. Workshops can be at universities or places of worship, churches, etc. And one-on-one coachings, there's lots of options. I do this thing called micro coaching or, more traditional coaching. So yeah, just feel free to reach out at startattheservice.com.
Thank you. Any last words, David?
Yep, don't judge a book by its cover. Open it up and you do a little Reader Digest skim of some of the change, and you'd be surprised that there's real people that you may disagree with on the, on the outside, but you find something on the inside that you do agree with.
Yes.
Yeah, those absolute truths. And yeah, so that pretty much wraps up today's conversation, and I hope we're all, I'm personally inspired to be a better listener. I felt very convicted. Talk about the pain on your pride. So yeah, and just, moving forward in any conversation you have, whether it's with your family member, a friend, or even just a classmate or whatever, just, don't be afraid to listen. I think that was a really great thing that we came from this. But anyway, okay, so yeah, you can follow us, and if anyone would like to be on the podcast or just get involved with, breaking into the communication among Gen Z or the younger generations or whatever you want to call it, just go to 180movement.org. And thank you so much, and we can close out now. Okay. All right, I'm just going to take my headphones.